Hey, what's up guys, Stay Patient here. Now it's been a bit of a crazy week with some slightly different content to usual, but we're back to our regular schedule programming finally, although I guess this series is kind of new in a way because I promised during the 5,000 subs video that I would start reviewing all the PlayStation Plus freebies, or at least looking at their trophies every single month. Now, this has been a bit of an odd month because the games themselves are updated, the PS Plus freebies are updated on the first Tuesday of every month. And they are usually announced, as far as I know, they are announced on the Wednesday before that Tuesday. Now that means that usually you get an announcement the month before, but because of the way the days have lined up this month, the first Tuesday of the month is actually the 7th, which means the Wednesday before was the 1st. So everyone was kind of waiting. Because you usually get an announcement on the final Wednesday of the month before, everyone was thinking on the 25th that we would find out about it. But of course, they'd forgotten that the days line up in a strange way this month. Not a strange way, but it just happens to fall on, Tuesday being the 7th. So we've got like a full week to wait before the games are actually added. So they were only announced on the 1st. Everyone was kind of saying, where are they? What's going on? But it makes sense. Now, I would have had the video up on the 1st, but like I said, it's been quite a different week to usual. I've been going through quite a transition with my work situation and everything, and I've been super busy. But from now on, I will, be working on getting a video up each month on the day that they are announced. But of course, they're not being added until Tuesday, so we've still got 3 days to prepare. And that's what these videos will be all about, making sure you guys are prepared for the releases each month, so you know which ones are going to be easy enough platinums and just which ones you might enjoy playing, things like that. So this month is kind of a poor month. Now, a lot of people don't like the fact that Sony are adding a lot of indie games to PlayStation Plus. Now, I don't mind that at all because usually if I want to play a AAA game, I buy it. But with the indie games, quite often they're free, as soon as they're added to the store. Or they're games that I haven't really thought to play, or I might not have bothered picking up. And quite often, I don't tend to buy a game if it doesn't have a platinum, unless it's something I really want to play. I do buy non-platinum games, but it's nice having a lot of indie titles because quite often that means that I'm getting something that I don't yet own. If all they gave us was AAAs, I'd end up, wasting loads of money because I'd look at it and think, crumbs, I've literally bought these a couple of months ago. And of course, I do think that people who avoid indies are really missing out on some really great experiences because there are some hidden gems that I think are really worth checking out. But they're not all great. So sometimes we do get some sort of shovelware, you might call it. And this month, to be honest, it doesn't look like a great month for trophy hunters and for just gamers in general. There are some okay games here and there are some relatively easy games, but there are only 2 platinums out of this list, and one of them is LittleBigPlanet 3, which is a fun game. It's a fun, it's an enjoyable game to play, but it's very cheap. If you wanted to buy it, you'd get it for next to nothing, maybe just a few pounds or a few dollars. So it feels a little bit irrelevant kind of adding it for free to PlayStation Plus, to be honest. But let's just go through these. We're not going to kind of watch gameplay for them or anything because the video would be too long otherwise. So if you want to check out actual gameplay for any of these games, obviously just hop on to a trailer or some gameplay from another channel or something. But like I mentioned, the first one up is LittleBigPlanet 3. Now, this is the trophy guide for it. It's relatively easy. Most people have given it a 3 or 4 out of 10. It's a lot easier than the previous LittleBigPlanets, and the online is a lot more reasonable as well. Of course, the old games required you to get tons of likes for your creations and things like that. And they were a real grind, and you had to kind of pair up with loads of people on voting on boosting threads and kind of trade likes and things like that. And they were a real nightmare. Now, this one's a lot quicker. The reason it's got 10 to 30 hours, I believe, is mostly because there was a glitch that made it a lot quicker. Now, the reason someone found that glitch was because the trophy, which involves completing all quests, is called a guy called Quest. Wait, which way am I going? Let's find the actual quest here. Okay. So originally, this trophy, which involves completing all the quests in the game, some of them, I think maybe all of them are missable. It's not referring to the missions or like the levels. It's referring to optional quests as you go through the game. but the trophy itself was glitched, so even if people earned it legitimately, it quite often wouldn't pop. So someone found a glitch where you could go into creation mode and you could create a level, and then you could almost like place those side quests into the level and set up timers so that it actually auto completed them for you. Now, it only took a few minutes. It was a bit fiddly, but once you knew what to do, it was literally a case of, 10 minutes and you'd have that trophy done. And there's, I think, 15 quests in the game. So not only did that help with the glitch trophy, but it also, it made the platinum a lot quicker. Now, from reading this earlier on before recording the video, it turns out that they have patched that glitch. Now, obviously, if you're playing on disc, if you happen to have bought the game and you haven't played it yet, haven't platted it, then you will still be able to use the glitch as long as you revert back to the original version of the game. So if you do want to delete a patch for a game, you literally delete the game itself if you've got the disc, and then load the disc up again, but cancel the download of the update. And make sure to either stay offline, turn your internet off, or just keep going to your notifications and cancelling the update. But we're talking about PS Plus freebies here, so most of you are going to be playing a digital copy of this. So this will come pre-patched. There's no way of deleting the patch, so this glitch won't be available to you. But hopefully that also means that they have patched the trophy itself, so it will pop when you complete all 15 of the quests. So this one shouldn't be too bad. It should be one that most of you can earn. It might take you a little bit longer because you're, having to go through all those 15 quests. The hardest thing about the game, if I remember correctly, is the fact that you need to complete all the main missions without dying. Now, that's not as hard as you might think. Some of the levels are a bit challenging. It's not a super easy platinum. It does take a bit of skill, but it's actually quite fun. It's a much shorter game. There's a lot less content, or at least a lot less content that you have to play for the trophies when compared to the first two games. So, it's actually quite enjoyable. You can get through all those missions in quite a short period of time, and you'll need to play each one a few times to get to know them well, and you'll build up your skill, you'll build up your memory of the actual, the levels themselves so that you can play them without dying. And it's quite fun, guys. You should be able to manage it, but it will be, a little challenging. And as I mentioned, the online trophies are very reasonable. It's just literally a case of like playing, I think, a couple of online levels that people created and things like that. So this is definitely doable. It's a fun, relatively easy plat. Not a Hero. This is kind of like a side-scrolling Hotline Miami. It doesn't have a platinum, and there's no guide for it, and there's no kind of real feedback. The only feedback is 2 votes on the voting thread for difficulty. One is a 6 and one's a 10, but the 10 might just be a troll. Quite often, you get someone voting a 10 on all of those threads. So you don't really have a lot to go on that one. Although there is a comment on psnprofiles.com on the actual game itself. Obviously, you can't really trust one person's feedback totally because, that's the benefit of having a voting thread, because everybody's skill level is different. Everybody is better at certain genres than others. So, having a voting thread allows us to get an overall picture of the general consensus. But we do have a comment here from Pony Rainbow. He says, got the game about 2 days ago. I got it for trophy purposes, thinking it was an easy game. Now I can't finish the game. The trophies are really challenging on this game. Each mission, we are giving 3 challenges. Example, complete this mission in under 80 seconds. Some of those challenges can be really hard. To get the gold on this game, we need to complete all 21 missions and all 3 challenges in each mission. Be patient, don't rush. So that's at least one person's opinion of the game. There's not a lot of feedback in this thread here. Most people are just commenting on the fact that all of the trophies are written in capitals. But like I say, not much to go on. It's a side-scrolling game. It's an old-school sort of 8 or 16-bit game. I always get confused between the two unless I see them next to each other. I can't identify them straight off the bat because I wasn't doing a huge amount of gaming back in that era. But there you go. I mean, it looks fun. It does look like a real laugh. Side-scrolling shooter. I mean, if you've played Hotline Miami or seen any footage of it, you'll know what I mean. Like very bloody and gory and violent and everything. A lot of blood flying everywhere. Starwhal. Now, Starwhal, I'm not entirely sure how the trophies work for this in the sense of stacking and things like that. If anyone can answer this question that I have, then I'll pin your comment at the top just so everyone else can, see what the situation is. But basically, if we go to PlayStationTrophies.org, you'll see here that we have a version that is PS3 and PS4. Now, when we check here, it says that it's cross-buy with PS4, so you're getting the PS4/PS3 version. But I'm guessing that's this one here. Although there's also a PS3, like a separate PS3 version and a separate PS4 version. Now this PS4 version is, tagged as EU or Europe. So it might well be that if you're in Europe, then you get the, two separate versions. You get the cross-buy, but maybe they've got separate platinums. But then if you're in the US, possibly it's just one shared platinum between the two versions. Now, if that's the case, this is a very unique situation. But I haven't really had time to fully research and tweet the developers or anything like that to find out for definite. And I'm sure someone watching this does know the situation. So if you're able to let us know in the comments, that would be really useful. But that's all I can think really, is that, it doesn't say EU here. But it doesn't say Japan or anything. It also, actually, it's worth checking. Oh, it does have a platinum. I'm kind of wondering why... Where are we? Oh, okay, I've lost myself now. Okay, I'm kind of wondering why it said PSN. There we go. It says PSN there rather than PlayStation 3. And usually it does that when there's no platinum. Although... maybe I'm wrong, actually. Maybe they just do that with any downloadable games. Anyway, if you know the situation with this, let me know. There is a trophy guide up. So you might be able to double plat it. You might only be able to single plat it. If you've got both, a US and European account, maybe it's possible to earn 3 platinums for it. There are definitely 3 plats available. Yeah, here we go. Just to prove it, guys, we do have a plat that's shared, and then we have an individual plat for each of the different versions. So it would be nice to find out, how many plats we're going to have access to depending on where we're from and which consoles we have. But yeah, the trophy guide, it gives it a 5 out of 10, and most of the votes in the voting thread and the comments are around a 5 or a 6. It does have a platinum, as we've mentioned a few times. It takes around, 20 hours or so. This basically is like a multiplayer. It's weird. You're playing as a narwhal, which basically in the game looks very much like a dolphin or a whale or something. And you've got, melee, almost like swordfish, you've got melee weapons coming out of your nose, and you fly around. It kind of reminds me of Rockets. Check out the gameplay for it. It looks kind of fun, but I think the difficulty comes with the single player challenges. So it's not a case of if you've got two, or if you've got 2 controllers or 2 PS4s, you'll be able to just fly through it. There are trophies like that, but there are also single player trophies that might be a bit harder. Let's carry on though, guys. Anna is a first-person psychological kind of horror game. A lot of you may have heard of it. Let's have a look here. I think there is a guide. Yeah, it's nice and easy, but there's no platinum, unfortunately. And it does take, 6 to 10 hours according to the guide. So it's really up to you. It's one of those games you'll probably only play if you want to play the game, because for the time involved, you're not getting a lot of trophies. That's probably around 300 points worth. So, it's a game that does look kind of cool if you're into your psychological horror. But next up, we have Ninja Senki. This is another 2D game. Looks very, very difficult. I think there's a guide, yeah. They give it a 9 out of 10. It takes quite a long time to earn, and there isn't a platinum. It's one of those typical old school, really tough 2D platformers, basically. It's a genre that I don't really have a lot of experience with. I don't really gravitate towards these types of games very often, and I think it will only be the hardcore kind of platform fans or platformer players amongst you that will give this a go, I would assume. And finally, we'd have Talk L. Now, I think there is a guide for this. 3 out of 10. Again, another non-platinum game. We're not getting many plats this month. But they give it a 3 out of 10. It does take a while to earn, but it does look kind of cool. You play as this guy here who's in like a square, and you press a different button to sort of send a rod or kind of send a rectangle out in either direction. It's like a physics-based puzzle game. And I believe you can do, more than one of them at once, and you're basically using them to like push yourself through the level, and you've got to interact with, or get into air kind of chutes, sections of air, like thermals or whatever you call them. And I mean, I've only seen little bits of gameplay. I think Nerd Cubed, he's quite an interesting channel. He's got some gameplay up on his channel if you wanted to check it out. But it looks really interesting. I think it's the kind of game that isn't going to appeal to everyone, but it really will appeal strongly to certain people. And it looks like a bit of fun. I probably won't have time to play it myself, but if I did have time free, I would, definitely check it out. So although it's a long one, if it looks like it's something that you'll enjoy, then give it a go. It's not too difficult going by the difficulty rating. Let's see what the general... Okay, so the guide writer's given it less than the actual voters on the thread here. Once you get used to the controls and physics, it's mainly down to patience to get through the levels. Looking at the solutions for all the routes on YouTube takes away the need to solve each level if you want less difficulty. The save feature makes it trivial to get the no deaths and 10, 30, 60 minute route trophies. If I remember correctly, saving only happens when you beat a level, so you can reload a level if you die and take too long without having to count. Right, so there's obviously trophies for getting through levels quickly and without dying, and as he mentions there, you can just, I guess, upload your save or go back to an old save if it's not overwritten. Yeah, so that's February's games, guys. As you can see, it's pretty underwhelming, to be honest. There were actually lots of predictions. There are loads of people that like to predict what games are going to be free, and they use like patterns in the industry and they analyze stuff, and they always come out with games that they're pretty certain it's like, right, it's going to be one of these 3 or 4 games definitely, and they're pretty much always wrong, which is hilarious. I find it so funny. I looked on here when they finally announced them, and a lot of people were saying that it was either going to be Lego Batman 3 or Gravity Rush, and that kind of made sense to me because Gravity Rush 2's just come out. Giving people Gravity Rush 1 for free would kind of spark their interest in the series and prompt them to want to buy the second one. And because it didn't sell a huge amount anyway, it's a great game, you should really check it out. Gravity Rush, the series is awesome, but it kind of made sense to me, the idea of putting the first one up for free. Lego Batman 3 as well. I think a lot of people love Lego games, and it's like, well, Batman 3 has kind of been and gone. There's been several games since then. So, they were good predictions, but, as is always the case, even with predicting the weather, people who are so-called pros in that area usually get things wrong. Because, I looked at the list and I was like, yep, absolutely nothing that anyone has predicted is here. So it's quite interesting looking through at what they've decided to go with. But as I said, it's a bit of a poor list, to be honest. Some of it looked kind of interesting, but there's nothing that makes you think, oh yes, finally we've got this game for free. But thanks for watching, guys. Like I say, I'm going to do this every month, and when there are games that I can do guides for, or if I have time to do guides, if they're games I'm familiar with, then I will put them up like I did with Day of the Tentacle last month. But in the meantime, guys, I look forward to seeing you tomorrow, hopefully, for either tomorrow or Monday for the weekly trophy update. And I hope you all have a great weekend. Thanks for watching, guys. I'll catch you soon.